Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening, y'all. It's me, Brian Forbes. I am back once again with the Black Factor. So I want to welcome everybody to the Black Factor, where the truth doesn't care about your opinion and the facts override your feelings. So y'all know what it is. We gonna do what we always do, and we gonna bring the heat, bring the smoke, and we gonna make it do what it do, because we're going to tell a whole bunch of truths, and the devil is a lie. You're going to get to hear me say that again before the show is out, except it's a slightly different terminology, and it just shows you how things change, but we're going to talk about that anyway. In the meantime and in between time, y'all, let's get this party started. All right. We are ready to get this ball rolling. We about to get started, y'all. Because today we're going to talk about something that a lot of people, I don't think, pay a lot of attention to. But we're going to deal with it. We're going to address it. And we're going to get some clarity about this particular topic. And it has to do with journalism. It's actually about media. It's about black media, white media, and social media. And just media in general, and how we end up in the situations that we're in. So before we get going, y'all, this is the Black Factor. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification buttons on YouTube, like and share on Facebook, join Twitch, follow me on Twitter, and don't forget to support black media. That is what this very show is about. It's about supporting black media. And we're going to get into a little bit of depth and some history. Y'all know how I do. We're going to get into some history of black media. I want to welcome my Oh So Smooth family for joining us. Thank y'all for coming in and kicking it and hanging out on Oh So Smooth Radio Network. Thank y'all for tuning in. And also, don't forget as well, for those of you who do not know and that you don't, and if you don't already have it, you should if you don't forget to get your Oh So Smooth Radio app. You can get it at the Play Store or at iTunes so that you can listen in case you don't want to watch. So that's a thing, right? All right, so look, y'all, I missed last week's show. Because last week at this time, I was on my way back here to San Antonio on what I would now affectionately refer to as Soul Plane, that being Southwest. Yeah. I swear, I've been traveling all summer, and I'm trying not to have to travel as much. I ain't lying, y'all. I'm tired of going places. And plus, with everything going on with this COVID and all this other stuff, I ain't really trying to be doing a lot of traveling. But I've been on a lot of damn planes in the last couple of months. And let me tell you, I even had a plane I was on, and I didn't even notice. They didn't put it on the ticket. It stopped in Jackson, Mississippi, of all places. Imagine that. Anyway, and that, by the way, that flight, they lost my luggage on that flight. Didn't get it back till I was on my way back out of Atlanta, about an hour out. And they was like, oh, we found your luggage. First they told me it was in Jackson, Mississippi. Then they said it was in Houston. Then they said it never left San Antonio. And then they called back an hour before we were about to fly back out to San Antonio and told us that they found it in Atlanta. Imagine that. Anyway, and I was going to do a whole rant about that, but I ain't got time. So anyway, y'all, last week I was on a plane on my way back here because my number one fan got his wings a couple of weeks ago. My grandfather, y'all. I know y'all heard me talk about him before. He was 96. He was about to be 97 next month. Days away from reaching 97. I told him he was going to be 100, but, all I can say is the man lived a strong, healthy, prosperous life. And it's going to take some getting used to. I ain't going to lie. I the other day, when we were leaving Chicago last week, crazy thing kind of hit me. I was sitting in my mother's house, and I had this idea in my head. There's this natural instinct that I have that says, go see Granddad before you leave. You always go see Granddad before you get on the plane. I was seeing him all. I would see him all the time. When I would come home, I'd come hang out with him for a couple hours, whatever, and kick it a little bit. And then I was thinking, damn, I got to go see Granddad before I go. And I was like, damn, we just buried Granddad. Whew, that was crazy. Anyway, he's in a better place, y'all. That's all I can say. I love the man. He made a huge difference in my life. Like they always say, iron sharpens iron and men sharpen men. And the man put a nice sharp edge on my life. So I thank him for that. And may he rest in peace eternally. Now, a couple of weeks ago, y'all also remember we had a young lady on the show, my girl, Crystal, who opened up the restaurant here in San Antonio called Chicago Bite. Oh, my God. The grand opening was off the chain. The place was packed out the door. Man, we had a fantastic time. A lot of Chicago people showed up and showed out. They literally ran out of chicken 3 hours into the grand opening. And don't get it twisted. It ain't like she didn't have enough. She had more than enough. The freezers was full. She emptied the freezers. And when we left there, because I DJ'd, I came in and I did the DJing for the last half of the event. I was there from 4 to 9, something like that. Man, let me tell you, the freezers were empty. The food is off the chain. Y'all, if you come to San Antonio, you got to go to Chicago Bite. That's all I'm going to tell you. And I don't normally, I love my Italian beefs, right? My Chicago style Italian beef dipped with hot peppers. That's just the way you got to have it. Well, she made one. I could have got it that way, but they made one. It was an open face with cheese on it. And I don't normally eat a lot of, cheese and stuff. But man, listen, when I tell you that thing was off the hook, I had to make myself stop eating. It was so big and there was so much of it that I literally had to make myself stop eating the damn Italian beef and put it down. I could see my food baby popping up, you dig? So I had to put that thing down. But the hot dogs, everything else, she even got the caramelized grapes, the whole nine, man. I'm talking about she got all the Chicago cuisine. And if you come here, you got to go there. It's 2339 Evans Road over there in the Encino area, Suite 106. Listen, I've been back over there a couple of times since then. I'm just going to confess, you know what I'm saying? I need to stop that, though. That was one of the things I didn't mind about being away from home because I didn't have to torture myself by not eating, Chicago-style food. But now I'm stuck because she here and the food is off the chain. And when I get that craving, I got a spot I can go to. And man, I can't say enough good things about it. And also, let's not forget, she is an extremely positive person. And I just want y'all to know, I love that about her in general. And that's why I believe her business is going to be very prosperous. And I'm happy for her. And I asked her, I was like, girl, you ready to be a millionaire? Because that's what's happening. It's all about black business, black entrepreneurship. But tonight we're going to talk about black media, among others. So what is media? Media is the main means of mass communication, broadcasting, publishing, and the internet. And they're all regarded collectively, right? Okay, so the media industry, such as journalism, filmmaking, and publishing, and photojournalism, are built upon the creation and distribution of stories. Stories are constructed in the form of systematically organized series of interconnected images, sound, and or words using media codes and conversations. Now, I want you to understand that media, it has this thing, and I don't know if some of y'all might remember. I talked about it on previous shows. It's a psychological thing called paired associate learning. In other words, when you show somebody a picture and you attach a set of words to it, it creates a narrative that allows you to process that information in a particular way. I want y'all to don't be confused, to be very clear that there are people who literally study the behaviors and movements of black people and society in general, who take the time to clearly understand why people do the things they do and what their habits are. That's why if you pay attention to your own social media, you'll realize that they're collecting information on you at all times. Facebook is notorious for it. Instagram. All of these places, they're looking at the things that you search for. They're looking at the connection to you and the other people in your Facebook groups, in your pages. They're paying attention to all of these things. All of these things set up demographics, and they know how to approach you and to approach you with what in order to gain your trust, your confidence, and so that they can try and sell you one thing or another, or subliminally affect your thought process. Yeah, all of these are a thing. They actually pay people big money to study what you think. And all of this is a necessity in regard to not only advertising, but just in media in general. The word media is a plural form of the Latin word medium. See, I never knew this. I had to learn this stuff myself. And it means middle ground or intermediate. So you know what that means, right? That means that as a journalist or a person in media, the media is supposed to portray, and we're talking about basically news, right? It's supposed to portray basically a middle ground. Like you don't have an opinion, or you don't tell one side slanted more than the other. You give the story the way it happened. That's what you're supposed to do, right? The Latin root word midi means middle. Its usage is a word that describes to describe newspapers, radio, and other sources of information. Likely derives from the term mass media, which was a technical term used in the advertising industry from the 1920s on. Now, you also have to take into consideration that media itself is not new, but the format in which we receive our information now is pretty new for the most part, right? The so-called mass media had to wait for the creation of new technologies before coming to life. The first of these, the first media now, well, not the first media, but the first form of media, of course, we know was on paper, right? Well, the first of these was paper, invented in China about 100 BCE, okay? So the invention of paper was the beginning of the creation of media. However, it took 1,500 years to pass before Johannes Gutenberg, them Germans, right, built the first printing press. You know, the Germans are famous for their printing presses. You got that Gutenberg, you got the Heidelberg. There's a couple more. I've used some of those printing machines. Believe it or not, I've actually worked. Well, I didn't work in a print shop. The high school I went to, vocational school, I took print shop for a year. I learned how to use all that stuff. And let me tell you, that's an amazing business. The contemporary media age can trace its origins back to the electrical telegraph, patented in the United States by Samuel Morse, Morse code, in 1837. Suddenly, information from distant places was nearly as accessible as local news. So this was the first time people could convey information quickly over wire, or what was way more quick than anybody taking a note, a letter, or using the mail to send stuff across country. And then even then, it wasn't in a mass capacity. It was only able to be given to whomever the message was going to. As local news and telegraph lines began to stretch across the globe, making their own kind of worldwide web. So that was your first internet. Morse, who invented the telegraph, who of course made it possible for information to travel as quickly as the wire lines would carry it. Media in the United States companies several different types of widespread communication, television, radio, and cinema, newspapers, magazines, and internet-based websites or social media. Now, these are all of the types of media companies that we have in the United States. However, while that breakdown is accurate, let's also remember that we have further breakdown in media, and that being the separation of color. Black media and white media. And for anyone who would venture to say that this is not a thing or that it should not be a thing, well, I will agree about the part that it shouldn't be a thing because it should have already been included. But of course, since the black experience is rarely included accurately, there becomes a necessity for black media. Ta-da, me. That's what I do. I bring information in a way that is digestible to people who need it put where, as Joe Madison says on his show, where the goats can get it. You got to put it down low or put it where it go so that they can reach it and feed on it and digest it. But you got now, prior to where we are today with social media and everything, we had Essence Magazine, Jet Magazine, The Root, which is a web-based thing. You had BET before Bob Johnson decided to sell it away. But that brought me to question: who was the first black, media entity? Who was the first black person to decide, let's get a mass, let's spread mass information about what's going on with us and our people. So the first black newspaper was called Freedom's Journal. It was the first black-owned and operated newspaper in the United States. A weekly 4-column publication printed every Friday, Freedom's Journal was founded by free-born African-American John Russwurm and Samuel Cornish on March 16th of 1827 in New York City, New York. So New York had the very first black widely published newspaper. But it had a short life because it only lasted until 1829, so 2 years. But nonetheless, it was the first, and they did it. Now, that brings me, I got to thinking about the black newspaper. So I remember when living in Chicago, my great-grandmother, who lived in that same building where my grandfather was living, I used to have to walk down to the corner stand. It was right on the corner too. It was a paper stand right there. And it's funny because it's one of those things you take for granted that you forget about that you remember back in the day when you were growing up that you don't see anymore. We had paper stands, and every morning I walk down to the paper stand and get one Sun-Times, one Tribune, and one Chicago Defender. Now, the Chicago Defender was one of the most prolific black news publications in the country. It was a Chicago-based black newspaper founded in 1905 by Robert Abbott. The Defender was once considered the most important newspaper of its kind and still is regarded as one of the greatest newspapers ever published. Abbott's newspaper reported and campaigned against Jim Crow-era violence and urged black people in the American South to come north in what became the Great Migration. See, now, we talk about these things on this show all the time, and the funny part about that is that it just goes to show you how ingrained and how intermingled, intertangled, interwound so many things are historically to so many other things, and we don't hear about them unless we hear about them through what? Black media. Anyway, he urged black people in the American South to come north. Like I said, they were literally a part of the Great Migration. The reasons why so many blacks left the South and came north. Why? Because of this publication. Now, I'm going to show you how he got it down there. Abbott worked out an informal distribution system with Pullman porters. Now, if you don't know what a Pullman porter is, I need to do a show about those guys. Now, they were very influential in the Great Migration as well. The Pullman porters who operated, they worked on the trains throughout the South. They would go north and come south. But while they were going south, they were taking these newspapers with them. Okay? So the Pullman porters, and of course sometimes against the southern state laws, took these papers by rail far beyond Chicago, especially to African-American readers in the southern states. In 1928, it helped to elect Oscar DePriest, the first black congressman after Reconstruction, pushed President Harry Truman to integrate the U.S. military in the 1940s, and pioneered demands for racial equality and sparked the civil rights movement. It went daily in 1956 and acquired a regional chain circulating 522,000 papers. That's large. That's large for a newspaper. Let me stop and say good evening to everybody. Look, I appreciate y'all tuning in. I see a lot of my favorite people on here. I thank you. Look at Pamela Pitts. Let's see, we got, AAA is in the building. Andrew Antonio Allen, Kenneth Holden, Chris Cheney, Regina Freeman, my girl Val Wells, and Dennis McCullough. Man, thanks for checking in, bro. I appreciate you. Anyway, let's keep it moving, y'all. I just want to stop and do that because, look, I want y'all to know how much I appreciate y'all checking me out. All right, so now, under his nephew and chosen successor, John H. Singstackle, the paper took on segregation, especially in the U.S. military during World War II. Copies of the paper were passed along in communities, and it is estimated that it's most successful. Each copy made its way into the hands of four out of 5 black folks in America. That's pretty strong, y'all. The Chicago Defender's editor and founder, Robert Singstackle, it's hard to pronounce his name, Singstack Abbott, played a major role in influencing a great migration of African Americans from the rural South to the urban North by means of strong moralistic rhetoric in his editorials and political cartoons. the promotion of Chicago as a destination, and the advertisement of successful black individuals as inspiration for blacks in the South. The rhetoric and art exhibited in the Defender demanded equality of the races and promoted the northern migration. Abbott published articles and were exposed of Southern crimes against blacks. The Defender consistently published articles describing lynchings in the South with vivid descriptions of gore and the victims' deaths. Ooh. And guess what? Unlike the Facebooks and the Instagrams and the other platforms, nobody was there to censor him because it was his joint. See, that's the other thing. We all get up every day and we go to our Facebook pages and our YouTube pages, and don't get it twisted now. We thank you because I personally thank you due to the fact that, this helps me to build my program. But at the same time, we get up and do it, but we still do not own the platforms. We still do not control those narratives, right? Dennis McCullum asks, which was first, the Chicago Defender or Ebony Jet? The Chicago Defender was first. Absolutely was first. It was 1902, I believe it was. Okay, so anyway, lynchings were at the peak at the turn of the century, and the period when Southern state legislators passed new constitutions and laws to disenfranchise most blacks and exclude them from political system, which is kind of the same thing we're seeing now. Legislatures dominated by conservative white Democrats established racial segregation and Jim Crow. Don't get it twisted. None of this is new. We have been literally struggling against the oppression and voter suppression and voting rights since the beginning of all of this. And these newspapers, these publications have given black people information about what we need to be doing, because you're not going to get it from white media. They're just not going to do it. Now, I've said this before, and I'll continue to say, I'm thankful that we're finally moving, I believe, into a time where more white people are becoming more aware, more knowledgeable, more understanding that they are not black and that they don't understand and that they don't have a license to tell black people how they're supposed to feel when they're being oppressed. So I cannot unequivocally say white people and put that blanket on all of them, because there are those who are making a difference. There are those who are moving toward some forms of equality and speaking out against it. I was against that TikTok when it first came out. I really wasn't feeling TikTok. I mean, I didn't know nothing about it. Let me just put it that way. And when I started watching TikTok, I see more white folks on there giving white folks the business for their hatred and their racism than I do damn near black people. And I'm happy to say that, and I'm happy to see that it is finally coming to pass that they're not afraid to speak up and say what's happening. Chris Cheney, Memphis free speech, 1881, Ida B. Wells. Oh, we gonna get to that. Look, I can't leave Ida B. Wells out now. You getting ahead of me, but we gonna get there. In 1923, Abbott and editor Lucius Harper created the Bud Billiken Club. Now, my Chicago people that's on here, y'all know what that is. This was created by the people at the Chicago Defender. The Bud Billiken Club for Black Children through the Junior Defender page of the paper. See, they had a junior section of the paper that catered to the children in the black community. The club encouraged the children's proper development and reading. The Defender in 1929 organization began the Bud Billiken Parade and Picnic, which is still held annually in Chicago in early August. In the 1950s, under Singstack's direction, the Bud Billiken Parade expanded and emerged as the largest single event in Chicago. To date, it attracts more than 1 million attendants with more than 25 million television viewers, making it one of the largest parades in the country annually. But you don't hear nobody except us talking about that. Aha. Today, we no longer read the daily newspapers. Everything now is on social media, or we on our phone, on the internet. That's how we mainly do our thing these days. This also has led to viral stories of nonsense and self-made, visually available and widely heard actors, actresses, entertainers, and intellectuals. You know how many people have actually created a lane for themselves through social media now? Now, I'm gonna say this because this deserves some attention. In the black community, now I don't know about the white community. I ain't in the white community. I'm unapologetically black. I deal with my people, and I don't, and I don't mean I don't deal with white people. But what I mean is, when I'm talking about this particular topic, I'm talking about when I speak to my elders and my older black folks. And I am thankful that my grandfather even was into the technology enough where he was watching me on YouTube, y'all. I came in and caught him watching me on YouTube one day. Blew my mind, But here's what I'm going to say about this. We are in a place where it's necessary for us to embrace social media, the new technology, and the things that are available at our disposal now to further our situation and to better ourselves. I know people who literally stay away from, like, for example, I've known people, I don't get on Facebook. Ain't nothing but drama on Facebook. I'm sorry. That's just not true. I've made money off of Facebook. I've promoted my businesses through Facebook, through other social media platforms. The idea that any of this is going in reverse and somehow we're going to start reading newspapers again is ridiculous. It's a ridiculous notion. So I'm speaking to my 45s and 50s and up who still think social media is some sort of a joke. Please understand, social media is deeply entrenched in the U.S. economy. There are people who have literally made themselves millionaires off of social media. They've become influencers. They've become journalists. I mean, look at me. I ain't no millionaire, but I've made a lane for myself that many of you like enough to come and get information from. Why? Because there are not enough of me. There are not enough people like me who are out here reaching for the truth and willing to provide it so that we can move in the right direction, so that we can move the way we need to be moving instead of being directed on which way to move, which unfortunately has been to our demise on a lot of levels. So we have to think about where we're headed and work within that if we intend to survive into the future. Now, the actual duty of a journalist is to further the ends of information by seeking truth and providing a fair and comprehensive account of events and issues. Conscientious journalists from all media and specialties strive to serve the public with thoroughness and honesty. Now there's a red flag, because we know, especially these days, people are not being thorough, nor are they being honest. They are playing to some sort of a other narrative, that whatever it is that they are trying to convey, whatever subliminal message they want to provide. See, that's what when we start talking about subliminal messages and the way they study the brain, the way they study your habits. These are things that they know how to give you the information they want you to have in order for you to move the way they want you to move. Because despite how much we think that we are unique individuals, human nature is not infinite. People by nature are going to behave in a particular way. Very few people have so much of a command of themselves and of their thought processes and in their mind that they're going to be more calculating. A lot of people act out of instinct. How many people we all know? Now, I know y'all know. Show me some thumbs up if you know people who are reactionary and operate out of emotion all the time. Everything that goes on, every time somebody pissed them off, they got an argument, they got a fight, they got a attitude about or with somebody. Y'all know these people. These are people who don't have command over their own thought process. Therefore, people in media and other areas like this have the power to control what you do and when you do it. It's that simple. There is a code. It's a group called, it's a SPJ, Society of Professional Journalists. They actually have a preamble. Members of the Society of Professional Journalists believe that public enlightenment is the forerunner of justice and the foundation of democracy. Ethical journalism strives to ensure the free exchange of information that is accurate, fair, and thorough. An ethical journalist acts with integrity. Now, when is the last time, y'all remember Walter Cronkite and guys like that? They didn't pull no punches, but they didn't tell lies either. There was a time when journalism had a code and people actually operated within those codes, and they did the right thing. They didn't intrude into people's lives and destroy people. You just didn't see that kind of stuff. Not from responsible journalists. You always had rag sheets. You always had people that was, go around making up stuff and tell these fringe stories and things that had little bits of truth in it. See, that's the other thing. Now, society declares these 4 principles as a foundation of ethical journalism and encourages their use in the practice by all people in all media. Now, I only took one excerpt out of each one of these points. Minimize harm. Now, that was the one we were just talking about. If you're going to minimize harm, you have to be careful about what you report, how you report it. Give the story. Don't include your opinion, but also don't do something that's going to hurt the innocent. Show compassion for those who may be affected by news coverage. Use heightened sensitivity when dealing with juveniles, victims of sex crimes, and sources of subjects who are inexperienced or unable to give consent. Consider cultural differences in approach and treatment. Now, see, we already know that is a bygone concept. Nobody cares anymore about a person, and especially if they're black. Nobody cares. They're gonna say what they want to say. How many times have we watched these news stories where black folks have already been convicted on television long before they ever go to court? They don't even know. The whole story's not even out. But the journalists got a part of the story, the narrative that they wanted to present, and they ran with it. Instead of waiting and see, just like how the police do every time something happens when one of them do wrong. Well, we got to wait for all of the information to come in. We got to wait for all of the video to come in. We don't know yet. But let me as a black man go out and commit a crime. Oh, we got him on tape. Lock him up. See, double standard. Act independently. The highest and primary obligation of ethical journalism is to serve the public. These people are self-serving nowadays. Refuse gifts, favors, fees, free travel, and special treatment, and avoid political and other outside activities that may compromise integrity or impartiality or may damage credibility. Nobody cares about credibility anymore. Nobody cares. I mean, think about it. There used to be a time you could actually shame people into doing the right thing. There's no such thing anymore. Nobody's ashamed of anything. People do whatever the hell they want. And the next person say, oh, well, it's a free country. They can do whatever they want. Really? Is that right? Okay. Be accountable and transparent. And I believe I saw someone put up there earlier. Dennis McCullum said transparency. Absolutely, Dennis. Be accountable and transparent. Expose unethical conduct in journalism, including within their organizations. In other words, they have to have whistleblowers right in their own office. Now, I only took one of these points from each one of those 3. But the 4th one, that's another story. Number 4, which is the part that I pride myself on. Seek the truth and report it. I don't believe in being biased. Wrong is wrong, right is right. Ethical journalism should be accurate and fair. Journalists should be honest and courageous in gathering, reporting, and interpreting information. See that right there? See, it's almost like when you read all of this stuff, it's almost like some of these journalists that would be asking too much. It would be too much work for them. And, and if you remember, y'all, I always say on this show, when you hear me say things, if I'm wrong, correct me. I want to be corrected. I want to know the truth. I don't want to be saying things that just seem like they sound good and make you feel good. No, that's not what I'm about over here. I'm about the truth. So if I ever make a mistake in the truths that I tell, because I do the homework, correct me. Show me where I can be corrected. Show me where the information is so that I can go and do my homework. Don't believe me. Look it up. We live in an information age. There's nothing out here that you should not be able to put your hands on to find out the real story. even in black life, even in black journalism, even in the stories, of black patents and all of the different things that black people have done historically throughout this country. These stories may not be what other people want to hear, but they're out there. They're true. And the fact is, they don't want you to know because then somehow they might be diminished. You know, kind of like how some people think that saying that I love black people means that I hate white people. And that's just simply not true. We don't have to have either or. We can have both. That's what people have to remember. Journalists should take responsibility for the accuracy of their work, verify information before releasing it, use original sources whenever possible. Remember that neither speed nor format excuses inaccuracy. Exactly. You know, there's days, y'all, I'd be thinking, I'd be like, I don't even want to do a show today. I got too much work to do. I got to find this information. I got to check that. I got to double check that because I don't know if that even sounded right. Did it come from a reliable source? I don't just put anything out there. I need to know. I need to know that what I'm saying to you is accurate, because now if I don't do that, I'm just as bad as the people I'm talking about. I'm just as bad as other journalists, and therefore you don't need me. Provide context. Take special care not to misrepresent or overwhelmingly in promoting, previewing, or summarizing a story. Gather, update, and correct information throughout the life of the news story. Be cautious when making promises, but keep the promises they make. Identify sources clearly. The public is entitled to as much information as possible to judge the reliability and the motivations of sources. Because y'all know some folks tell stories just for a lot of reasons, actually. Consider sources, motives before promising anonymity. Reserve anonymity for sources who may face danger, retribution, or other harm, and have information that cannot be obtained elsewhere. Explain why anonymity is granted. Diligently seek subject for news coverage to allow them to respond to criticism or allegations of wrongdoing. In other words, make sure that everybody gets to tell their side of the story. And I think that's one of the mistakes that a lot of people make. Dennis McCullum says, what happened to the libel and slander? Well, Dennis, I think those are more legal terms and not necessarily journalistic terms, but I think that under the rules of ethics, in terms of this code that they have, the SBJ, that would easily fall, I think, under one of these points. Avoid undercover or other superstitious methods of gathering information, unless traditional open methods will not yield information vital to the public. And y'all know when it comes to them superstitions and conspiracy theories, I hate them very badly. In fact, I'm probably biased against conspiracy theories. If you got a conspiracy theory, you better bring me some receipts, because I'm telling you now, I'm gonna shoot that shit down. I need resources. I need receipts, baby. Be vigilant and courageous about holding those with power accountable. Give voice to the voiceless. Hey, Phyllis, I see you. Support the open and civil exchange of views, even views they find repugnant. In other words, sometimes as journalists, we have to interview and talk to people that we do not like and don't respect. But in the vein of getting the right information or getting the point of view of those who have been accused or those who have a specific ideology, we still got to listen to them sometimes. It's unfortunate, but it's true. Recognize a special obligation to serve as watchdogs over public affairs and government. Seek to ensure that the public's business is conducted in an open and that public records are open to all. See, this is all about journalism, y'all. Provide access to source material when it is relevant and appropriate. Boldly tell the story of the diversity and magnitude of the human experience. Seek sources whose voices we seldom hear. And that is what we do here at the Black Factor. We seek the sources and the voices and the stories of those that you do not hear. Otherwise, I don't need to be here. The whole point of the Black Factor is to bring out the factors, the facts of black life, some of the things that happened, some of the greatness, the things that got us to where we are, how and why. If I can't do that, then I'm wasting y'all's time. Avoid stereotyping. Journalists should examine the ways their values and experiences may shape their reporting. Label advocacy and commentary. Avoid stereotyping. Wow. Now, it's a shame, but we have been stereotyped our entire existence in America. And, I almost don't even know what to say to that one. The narrative is always presented to us in ways that don't necessarily look good to us. Okay, so Chris Cheney says, television changed the perception of America because we're reading about injustice or listening by radio. Words heard and visual with words is two different influences. Absolutely, I agree. And that goes back to what I said about paired associate learning. Bloody Sunday and the assassination of JFK, MLK, and RFK changed the game of media. Although we saw what occurred, what was said in the media was totally different at times. Vietnam War and riots were seen by millions of Americans. When poverty and crime were shown without showing prosperity, set the narrative for what the values of those who control the media and reporting. Absolutely, Chris Cheney. Thank you for that input, and you are absolutely correct. Again, we go back to associate pair learning. You have to be careful because the narratives are presented in a way for a reason. I'm gonna tell y'all, if you ever do, I'm gonna tell you what, I'm gonna give you a real good exercise. This is something anybody can do. One day, when you are just chilling at home, right? Turn the volume off on your television. Something that you can rewind or replay or something like that. Just turn the volume off and watch the television. Try to interpret what's happening through your visual. You will come up with a narrative of your own. But then I want you to go back and watch the same thing with the dialogue and just see how different those two things really are. See, this is just an exercise just to give you an idea of how out of control we really are as it pertains to what we ingest into our minds. Understand, the same way you put food into your mouth, knowledge comes through your eyes and through your ears. So understand that what you feed yourself can also have a huge impact on how you move in the world. So that's one to grow on right there. I'm telling y'all, do that. Just do that just to see how it feels. Never deliberately distort facts or context, including visual information. Clearly label illustrations and reenactments. Never plagiarize, always attribute. So, now y'all, speaking of plagiarism, I remember when it was her name, Donald Trump's wife plagiarized Michelle Obama's speech. Oof, boy, I tell you. Anyway, back to the subject at hand. Ida B. Wells, one of my favorites, y'all. Ida B. Wells Barnett was prominent journalist. She was a prominent journalist, activist, and researcher. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, in her lifetime, she battled sexism, racism, violence, and as a skilled writer, Wells Barnett also used her skills as a journalist to shed light on the conditions of African Americans throughout the South. She published her findings in a pamphlet and wrote several columns in a local newspaper, and her expose about an 1892 lynching enraged locals. They didn't want her talking publicly and in a mass capacity about the atrocities that they committed. Maybe they shouldn't have done it. That would be a good start, you think? Her expose in 1892 caused the locals to burn her press and drove her out of Memphis. In other words, they ran out of town on a rail because of what she said. After a few months, the threats became so bad, she was forced to move to Chicago. Chicago. She moved to Chi-Town. Y'all know we have a street there, a very large street there, named Ida B. Wells Street, downtown. In 1893, Wells Barnett joined other African American leaders in calling for the boycott of the World's Columbian Exposition. The boycotters accused the Exposition Committee of locking out African Americans and negatively portraying the black community. More media and someone to combat it. Here, I am myself. I would like to pattern myself after the Ida B. Wells of the world and get back at those who would negatively portray my people and my community. So I provide the damage control. And it's a shame that that's all we got to keep doing is damage control instead of it not us the narrative being what it should be. Regina Freeman said Ida B. Wells housing project. You know, Regina, I avoided that deliberately, but since you put it out there, anyway, one of Ida B. Wells' favorite quotes of mine. I love this because I talked about her on a show last year. A Winchester rifle should have a place of honor in every black home. I love that. Her reasoning behind that was that whenever black people in the South defended themselves, and now understand this, that Winchester rifle was a Winchester repeating rifle. During that time, that was like the AR-15 of today. It was the fastest shot. It was accurate. It had everything going on. And she said that every black household should have a place of honor for a Winchester rifle because it was a known fact that the black folks who actually stood up and defended themselves during the wannabe lynchings and hangings were more likely to stay alive, and it also kept white folks from just running up on them. In other words, if you run up on my property, you run up on my house, you finna catch a couple of these. And that's how that went. And that was her ideology, and they were not afraid to fight. But of course, being overwhelmed, and let's not forget that the law was on their side, not the black folks, that they could do whatever they wanted. So, there's a thing called the power of the pen, y'all. Now it's the power of the keyboard. Again, do not negate social media as anything other than nonsense, because there is way more to this than a lot of people care to acknowledge. The power of the keyboard gives otherwise unknown and unseen individuals the ability to tell a story and have it seen by millions without the benefit of approval or disapproval. Now, think about this, y'all. How many times have y'all seen people who were nobody become an influencer on Instagram or one of these other platforms? How often have we seen people who are talented get a career from being on social media, singing a song, playing an instrument, being funny, comedy, creating shows that have been picked up and bought by other entities? Understand this, the internet, the social media platforms have increased people's ability to reach the masses. We no longer have to depend upon others to provide us with particular information. We can go peer to peer now. We can reach straight out to somebody in another country and have a whole conversation. They got translators on the internet. All you got to do is go to Google and type in whatever language to English. You can have a whole conversation with people. You have the ability. Now let me encourage y'all. I'm telling y'all now. If you got a business idea, if you have a product, understand that if you put that out there, you can literally put it out to the world. You don't need a storefront. You don't need people walking by to see your stuff in the window to decide to come in and shop with you. You don't have to do advertisements all over the television anymore. Most people don't even watch television anymore. And when they do watch it, they're not watching commercials. All the commercials, why do you think they start putting commercials on YouTube and all on Facebook and ads popping up everywhere? That's why. Understand that you have the power, literally, to create your own lane. You can display your talent for the world to see. And all you got to do is just do it. Now, always remember what I say. The successful people are the ones that are willing to do what others won't. Understand this. At this point right now in history, we're all journalists. We all have the ability to convey a message. Now, hopefully, we will operate in integrity and we won't slander and do all the other things that we shouldn't be doing in that way. But we all have the ability to do it. I'm doing it. Look at me. Y'all watching me right now. Oh, and by the way, let me just say this. Whenever I go to other places, I'm in other cities, and even in my own city, and people walk up to me and say, oh, man, the Black Factor. Man, y'all don't know how much I love that. I'm just telling you, I love that. I do. What I'm going to do is probably starting next month, I'm going to start keeping Black Factor T-shirts on me. So if you run into me in the street and you mention the Black Factor, you're going to get a free T-shirt. Okay. Because we're all journalists now, you know, there's a lot of stories that have actually made it to the news because of going viral. There are situations where people have been killed by the police and so on that have gone on to make a difference because of social media. Because enough people on social media, 1 million hits, 1.3 million people saw this video, and the news had to pick it up like, wow, what, this really happened? The stories that don't make the local news. Understand also that y'all ever heard of the Associated Press? If you go to certain cities or you even go to different news stations, sometimes you can actually turn the channel and hear the exact same story reported the exact same way by different network and different anchors. And why is that? Because they have a central pool that sometimes they draw stories from. And they go and they just get the story and they tell it. Now the stories, for example, if you go through the Associated Press, it's already prepped. All they got to do is grab it. Now, a lot of times, and I know y'all have had this happen too, if you're a black person on this show paying attention, white people often ask, why does everything have to be about race? How many times have we heard that rhetoric, right? It's as though they believe somehow that black people are the ones who actually created the division between black folks and white folks. See, racism is not a black problem. It's a white problem. We're just the victims of it. And until we decide to stop being victimized, it'll continue. Now, it's a race thing because we have to not only be able to defend ourselves physically and from the hatred and the lies and misinformation created by white media, not limited to, but including everything from the racist cartoons, news articles. And I'm going to just tell you, the two that come to mind immediately, Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny. See, a lot of that stuff has been hidden and tucked away. But the deal is, them some of the most racist jokers you ever want to see. Some of them cartoons was horrible, but they got them tucked away. They're not politically correct anymore. But then you have those white folks that'll say stuff like, well, that was a long time ago. See, because back when these cartoons were made, we talking about the early years of cartoons. Oh, that was a long time ago. And I say that the ill-conceived misconceptions that people hold today about black folks are narratives that were created a long time ago, based solely on your skin tone. Decades and centuries ago even. The word nigger was created a couple of hundred years ago. It's 2021, and you still got white folks running around here attempting to weaponize a word that only affects you if you let it. See, now we going back to what I said earlier about operating out of emotion and letting it get you caught up and you lose control based on your emotions. You know, people literally have to be taught to hate. Nobody just pops out of the womb one day hating other people of colors. They have to be told things by people that they trust in order for the hate and bigotry and racism to still exist. They had to be taught this. This is not a humanly inherent trait. But media has been a great perpetrator of that very thing. Media controlled and owned and operated by predominantly white people. The people who tell these stories, they either actually bought into the lies or they were taught deliberately to hate other people just because of the color of their skin. That in itself is a tragedy. But this is what we're dealing with. Now, there's an author, Aldous Huxley, who wrote a book called The Brave New World. I'm sure you've probably heard of that before. One of his quotes, one believes things because one has been conditioned to believe them. Now, we could be talking about white folks on this one, but we can also be talking about black folks because there are a lot of black people walking around right now today who believe what they've been told by those who don't mean them any good as a part of their conditioning. Y'all got that? Be careful what your beliefs are. How many people are really willing? I want to see, and y'all show me some hearts on this one. How many people are willing to question their own beliefs and ask themselves, are these beliefs based on my conditioning or are these good teachings? See, very few people are willing to explore that. See, I can tell because I only got one heart. See, most people are not going to question their own beliefs. But if they start to question the origins of their beliefs, then it starts to get a little more possible. It becomes more plausible. When you ask yourself the source of your beliefs and you start to really dig deep, you start to figure out, wait a minute, I could be wrong. Oh So Smooth family, thank you for tuning in. We're going to get back with y'all. You can check us out on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. Y'all have a good night. All right, everybody else. I'm sorry, y'all know I got to let them go after the hour. They got to get on to the next thing, the simulcast. Anyway, the things that we believe are rooted. And see, and here's the crazy thing about our belief systems and our conditioning. We get conditioned by people who love us most of the time. We either get conditioned by people who love us or people who hate us. The people who love us tell us things based on their own experiences. But the crazy part is that a lot of times their experiences are not often good, or they're jaded, or they're one-sided. And, you know, and they teach you stuff. Girl, don't get yourself in this situation. Teaching their daughters, girl, don't get yourself in this situation because I did this, that, and the other, blah, 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 blah. But here's the thing. None of the people who we love are perfect either. So there may be reason to question some of the things that they may have taught. I've seen a lot of people go through their lives and have to make changes in the way they do things because they finally realized that it was wrong, but they hated to let it go because someone that they loved taught it to them. White people have to deal with that same thing. And that's why a lot of them walk around bigoted and have all that hate in their heart, because they don't understand that the conditioning that they've received from their own people who they love was wrong. We don't want to do that because we feel like we're being disrespectful if we change and we start to question and think about things. Understand this. Black folks have been conditioned not to question anything. That came from slavery. We still have that. Black folks are conditioned to believe that we are only supposed to reach success, have happiness, and have a great life after death. We've been conditioned that way. A lot of people people gonna want to jump on me about that one. I don't really care. I'm here for the smoke. But the fact is, we've been conditioned to believe that our reward is in heaven, someplace no one has ever been and returned to talk about. Now I'm gonna leave that right there. Another quote by Aldous Huxley of A Brave New World. This concern with the basic condition of freedom, the absence of physical constraint, is unquestionably necessary, but is not all that is necessary. It is perfectly possible for a man to be out of bondage, yet not free, to be under no physical constraint, and yet to be a psychological captive, compelled to think, feel, and act as the representatives of the national state or of some private interest within the nation want him to think, feel, and act. Is that not black people in America? Been told what to think, how to feel, and how to act by people who do not have your best interest at heart. And so many have bought into their conditioning. And then we wonder why we continue to not bond to one another and move forward. It's a shame. The Brave New World, in case you didn't know, if y'all want to look it up, it's a dystopian social science fiction novel written by the English author Aldous Huxley. Controlling the narrative controls the minds of the people. When you control the narrative, of course, like I said earlier, you are part of the conditioning that keeps you thinking a certain way. Again, when you're watching something on TV, turn the volume off. Get an interpretation of what you think is going on. Then turn around and turn the volume back on just to see what's really going on. Just to show you how different the two can be. Paired associate learning. Narrative that governs over the current illness plaguing America. I won't say those words because I want to disrupt the algorithms. But the narrative that we are getting currently that is governing our behavior within this country is questionable. Here's the reason why. There are people who believe they can get it if they have gotten a shot. They can't get it if they've gotten a shot. Although you still can. But guess what the narrative is? If you get a shot, everything is okay. Now don't get it twisted. They've already made it clear that even if you get the shot, you can still get sick. You might not die, but then there are people who get it anyway and might not die. I had it. I didn't die. My point is that there's a false narrative being presented. It's not that people want to catch it. Nobody does. But the idea, just as an example, you have the governor of Texas and the governor of Florida right now railing against a mask mandate for students, yet have some of the highest numbers for infection. Now, it just only makes me believe one thing. There's something more sinister afoot. I'm starting to sway toward population control. Something is going on. Because I don't understand. I know they couldn't possibly be that stupid. It's just not possible. They know something. And I'm not, again, I hate conspiracy theories. But something else is going on. I don't understand how you go against a mask mandate, but encourage people to get a shot. But then at the same time, yeah, anyway, regardless of the mainstream media, who is now attempting to shame everybody who doesn't have one. And then the people who don't have one are trying to shame the people who do. But it's like they're making it seem like people who do have it, the shot, are somehow invincible. How is that? You're not. There are people who are still dying and have gotten the shot. But they're not going to tell you that part. See, this is where, again, the media, and how they control the narrative. They don't want to tell you those stories. But every 5 minutes, you get to hear about the guy who got the virus and oh, I wish I'd have gotten the shot. Oh, I wish I'd have got the shot. Why are we seeing those stories and not the stories of the families whose relative is still dead, even if they got the shot? See how they control, see how they sway, control the narrative? It's a very dangerous thing. I don't even know what to say about it no more. In the end, here's the funny part about that. What they've done is mixed the truth, some truths, with some lies, which brings me to yet another quote. William Peter Blatty from The Exorcist, y'all. Many of you are familiar with this portion of this quote. And it goes, "The demon is a liar." In other words, y'all, the devil is a lie. And in case you want to know where that came from, the demon is a liar. He will lie to confuse us, but he will also mix lies with the truth to attack us. His attack is psychological, Damien, and powerful. Yep. See, y'all, ain't nothing new under the sun. All of this is stuff that we've already experienced and we're already familiar with, y'all. This is what I'm saying. I'm going to close out here in a minute. Let me say this, y'all. Support black media. Support all black podcasters, bloggers, and creators, influencers who have positive content and are trying to shine the light on us that white media will not. We have to shine a light on ourselves. All right, Regina, I know you're a troublemaker. I do this as a way to provide truth, to provide another conduit to the truth, to the truths that matter to us. We know what they thinking, but we have to get information that they're not going to give. That's why I do what I do. The real story, the things that relate to people of color, my people. We don't go around trying to tell people how to feel about the injustices that we suffer. And we understand because we have to live it every day. They, on the other hand, are very good about telling us how we should feel after they've done something that they shouldn't have to us. I've had to tell white folks, white men in particular, myself, who think they have it all figured out and they got all the answers. They know everything. Become a black man for a day or so. And then come back and talk to me about what you know about how I feel after you do that. But since I know you can't, then that also means that you can't tell me what I should be thinking or how I should feel about the atrocities committed against me or my people, or the way I'm treated when I go in a store in certain parts of the country or in certain neighborhoods, or the way I'm talked to because somebody thinks that they can be condescending to me because of the color of my skin. Until you've had that happen, there's nothing you can tell me. Nothing. And don't give me none of your false equivalencies. What are the false equivalencies? I'm going to give you one that I heard. This is one that I've heard more than once. I'm Irish, and we had it bad too. Oh, really? You're Irish, and you had it bad? Or, I'm Jewish, and we had the Holocaust. Yep, okay. Nope. Guess what? I'm black, and we had 400 plus years, tens of millions of black bodies subjected to kidnapping, torture, rape, sodomy, hangings, dragons, intimidation, threats, burnings, and murder. All sanctioned by law. Y'all had that too? And all for one reason, and one reason only, because of the color of my skin. The ongoing rhetoric that we are subjected to. Somehow, it is believed that black folks are subhuman. Again, these are taught. This is taught information. This is not something people woke up one day with and said, oh, look at them, they're subhuman. No, somebody had to teach that. The narrative in the media consistently teaches that. When a white child sits in a classroom and there's one black kid in there, for example, he reads his story about George Washington and all the other great white people that are in the textbooks. And he looks over at his black friend and he thinks, people who look like you didn't do nothing. Starts at very young age. That black child is sitting there thinking, yeah, all these great white people, I want to be white. All these great white people, what did we ever do? We didn't do nothing. We ain't nothing. And none of these words have to ever be passed. This is only a thought process that takes place. You know, children are very observant. This goes back to the doll test. You put the white doll and the black doll in front of a child, and the child selects the white doll because they somehow believe that the black doll is bad. Because this is the narrative. You don't have to tell them that that doll is bad. They believe that doll is bad because they've been told they are bad. This is paired associative learning. We don't have to be seen as subhuman to all of them, just the ones in power, and the few who go unchecked by the ones who claim to be not racist. See, you got white folks who got friends that are inherently racist. They're downright racist, but they don't say a word to them. They don't check them. See, again, racism is not a black problem. This is a white problem. It ain't a black and white problem. It's a white problem. They created it, and it's up to them to stop it. But once again, like I always say, y'all, power concedes nothing without demand. Nobody gives away power. Power must be taken. That's the only way. If all the stories were told and told truthfully, America wouldn't be the way that it is. Black folks have made incredible contributions to this country. And those contributions would be in the school books. And it would be in the history openly so that everyone would know the truth. In other words, what I'm saying is that we wouldn't even need black media. We wouldn't need black history. We wouldn't need black schools, black instructors. The list goes on. Why? Because people would understand the contributions of black people in this country. We are the black factor. We are a part of the equation without which you do not have a conclusive answer. Understand that. That is what the black factor is. In America, in American media, it is unfortunate that I have to say, when it comes to black people, the integrity is often lost. And white lies, not lives, not like you see back there. Take the V out. White lies matter. There should be no Black History Month. There should be no black media. There should only be history and media. Because the natural part of it would be that we are already automatically included where we have been excluded. And there wouldn't be a need for either. But we know that the lack of integrity and the lack of humanity in those who would see us oppressed will not allow that to ever happen. Therefore, it is a necessity for us to have black media, black history, and everything else black. So yes, it is a race thing. So when people want to, white folks get to holler about, why does everything have to be about race? Because y'all made it about race. If you wanted to stop being about race, then every time you hear one of your friends yell out the N-word or whatever else they do, check them, stop them. If you're not going to do that, then you need to shut up. I digress. This is all due to the separation created by them. But we have to, and we will continue to speak truth to power. Because like I said again, power is to be taken, not given. We have to take back our image. We have to take back the narrative. We have to show who we are in a truthful light. That's why shows like The Black Factor, Roland Martin, by the way, another good show, great guy, who brings news in a way that makes it so that the truth is told where we are concerned. Because it's unfortunate we get lied on, but the fact is, showing who we are in a truthful light, good, bad, or indifferent, is critical to our survival. And we have to bring our babies along and make them understand low self-esteem is not an option. We are great. We are great people. Our children don't get to see enough of that. Our children don't get to hear the narratives in the news, and they don't get to see the stories that need to be told about the people who would inspire them. You can't expect a bunch of children to be inspired by the pimp next door when we have athletes, entertainers, scientists, doctors, corporate people, investment bankers who have done fantastic, amazing things in America, but you don't know who they are. You don't even know their names. You don't know who they are. Inventors that they don't know about. Why? Because we have to dig out the information to give to them, because mainstream education won't. It's not part of the curriculum. It's not important enough. That's the narrative. We do not live in a post-racial society, y'all. And until we make a conscious decision to do just the hell with what everybody else is doing, we got to do us. And it's time. It's time for that. So that's where we are. Ladies and gentlemen, do not allow yourselves to be manipulated, molded, folded, blended, or scolded by those who would see you oppressed. Stand up. The game is over when we stand up. Y'all ever seen that meme on Facebook where you got the bunch of black folks lined up, sitting down on their hands and knees with their backs, and a game board on top, and all the white men sitting around on other black backs? And they're all sitting there and they're playing a game. And the narrative, the caption says, all you have to do is stand up. In other words, stand up, game over. Y'all remember what I said about J. Edgar Hoover? The number one threat to America was black unity. He said that in 1969. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Brian Forbes. This has been The Black Factor. I appreciate each and every one of y'all. I thank you for tuning in and turning on and checking out the information. And hopefully I've inspired or moved the needle just a little bit in some of you. And hopefully we will continue to use our minds to further our existence and further our causes. I want each and every one of you to have a fantastic evening. I thank you. It has been good for me. I hope it's been good for you. All right, y'all. Love, peace, and chicken grease.